Good morning. I'm Dave Platt. Now in my very early 40s, I'm proud to be gay, but still struggle on some days with shame and self-hatred, which prevents me from embracing and accepting my true self. I imagine that many LGBT people born in the 70s have struggled with similar issues. Hateful and intolerant messages throughout our lives have often resulted in a level of internalized homophobia that requires regular reflection and attention. I've improved over the years thanks to a good therapist, loving friendships and relationships, a very accepting family, and finally finding a church that fully supports the human rights of LGBT people, all people. There were times when I just wanted to give up, and in my teens even considered suicide as a way to escape what I expected to be a very unfulfilling life. Did you know that some studies show that LGBT teens are up to 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their heterosexual peers? Growing up in the 70s and 80s and realizing that I was different was hard. As a child and teen, I identified more closely with females and naturally rejected more masculine interests. My peers knew something was wrong when I invited them over to listen to Barbra Streisand records. And when I showed up at school dressed as Wonder Woman for Halloween in the 3rd grade, it was all over. Never fitting in, I was bullied and beat up for being me and called a faggot on a regular basis, which was humiliating and made me feel just like the sissy duckling. What was worse than the physical threat was the shame, the feeling of rejection for being who I was, which was not considered normal. Raised as a Catholic, homosexuality was a serious sin, and I lived with guilt until I eventually learned to ignore intolerant messages from priests and parishioners. I also learned to psychologically repress the shame and self-hatred in order to protect myself from falling apart. It was important for me to hide my true self and pretend that I was someone else, someone straight. I learned to fear most people because at the time it felt truly like a matter of survival. There was nobody available to teach me differently or to help me to learn to love myself for who I am. What do you do when you learn to live this way for most of your life and cannot exist without feeling constant fear? At the age of 40, do I still need to be afraid of others to protect myself physically and emotionally? I refuse to live in fear any longer. MDUUC is a sanctuary where I can feel proud of who I am and love myself and others for their wonderful differences. I look around today and see some kids and teens with much more confidence than I had, thanks to UU programs such as OWL and Coming of Age. They seem proud not to be normal and embrace being different. It would have been a blessing to grow up in a UU environment like this where you can feel safe, accepted, and valued as an individual. When I discovered MDUUC in my 30s, it helped me to move away from the destructive path of fear to the healing path of love. Love for the church that I belong to, love for the wonderful friends that I've made, but most of all, love for myself exactly how I am.